My next guest is going to be fighting at UFC 258 on February 13th. She's going to be taking on Gillian Robertson. It is Miranda Maverick back here on the program. Miranda, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Good to catch up with you. Of course, really good debut a few months back, or I should say, yeah, I guess it was a few months back, getting that doctor stoppage over Jojua. You must have been happy with that performance because you look pretty dominant in that one.
I was pretty happy with it. I kind of wished I had stopped it more dominantly by actually having hands on her when it got stopped instead of doctor stoppage in between rounds. It causes a lot of controversy, I guess, amongst people. But I was happy with my performance within that round. I think I kind of showed off my striking where I hadn't been able to before.
Maybe I've got my head in the sand, but was there people upset with the stoppage? I thought it was pretty justified. You were out. I mean, you were beating her pretty decisively, at least in my eyes, anyways.
You would think so, but Jujua herself was saying on interviews how she won the round and how she was going to win subsequent rounds and she didn't want it stopped. And of course, you know, your own fans jump on that bandwagon. So a lot of her fans, I got some hate mail from and things of that sort.
Is that new for you, getting that type of feedback from a fight just because you're on a bigger stage now in the UFC?
Not as much. Invicta still had it, just not on as large of a scale. And of course, I've never had a doctor stoppage like that. So usually my wins are pretty decisive. I don't get too, much negative feedback.
There you go. Okay. And how was the whole overall Fight Island experience for you, getting to go down there and do all that?
It was amazing. I'm so glad I had my debut with the UFC at Fight Island on that big card. It gave me a lot of exposure and I really enjoyed it there too. It was the first time I had traveled internationally. And I kind of liked the privacy of having the whole COVID restrictions and stuff. You went on the beach, you were the only one there. Just a lot of kind of alone time, almost like a vacation, which I don't have very often.
Right. No, you're super busy. That makes sense. Let's talk about this fight. I'm a little bit surprised, I'll be honest, only because you kind of fought a prospect in your last fight in Jojua. And I know Robertson, I guess she's still kind of a prospect because of her age, but you guys are similar age, similar sort of, records even. Were you surprised to get this fight? Did you think you were going to get a veteran next time out?
I wasn't really surprised. I had a lot of short notice offers against people within her ranking and things of that nature. I'm familiar with Gillian. I've met her before. I think she's a nice person. I respect her. I was excited to get that fight. I think it's getting me closer and closer to that top 15, top 10 kind of number and just keep working my way up. I kind of wish I would have gotten a couple more prospects just so I could get a couple more fights on my contract, I guess you'd say, to where I could negotiate more for pay, but I'm happy with this fight. I'm excited to show up and show out.
And we know what Jillian's going to try and do. She'll try and submit you. That's her bread and butter. How do you feel like you match up against her here? Am I missing anything in terms of the style matchup?
That's what it sounds like. She sounds like she's going to try to take me down and, as she calls them, throat cuddle me, choke me. I don't really think she's used to anyone with my ground pressure. We both have that grappling background, and people note that with the matchup, it being a good matchup, it'll be all ground game, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the case. I plan on taking it wherever this fight goes. I plan on being dominant on the ground with her. I don't think she's used to my wrestling or my pressure. She winds up on bottom a lot in her previous fights, and that's not a good place to be with me. I doubt she's going to be able to just slip out and get right back on top. In addition to that, I feel like my striking's pretty superior to hers at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be a really cool matchup just from a style perspective. Now, training camp, who are you getting to work with? Is it pretty much business as usual? You're working with anyone different? What is camp looking like heading into this fight?
It's business as usual. We did amazing preparing me for the last fight, and now it's just making sure my cardio's up and just adding a couple tools to the game in between every fight camp. I've been staying ready ever since before Christmas for a short notice for a fight that might come up, and I'm ready to go.
I always ask this, how are you juggling everything, with everything outside of the cage, with all your schooling and all that? How's all that going leading into this fight?
It's going fine. I'm actually working on homework now. Took this call for the interview, and I'll be right back to schoolwork. I have class at 3 to 4:30, and then 4:30 to 7 at night. So that's kind of how my life goes. And then I train until about 10:30 tonight, and most days I train from 5:30 to 10.
I imagine school is remote right now, right? You can't go into class?
It is remote right now, which in some cases is easier, in other cases is much more difficult.
Okay. Why is it more difficult just because you don't have that, the teacher right in front of you, or what is what are some pros and cons of it?
The pros are obviously travel. I don't have to go in. I don't have to see people. And I learn, honestly, at a lot quicker pace, I think, by myself. I get a lot more done by just being on my own time. I'm pretty disciplined when it comes to that. The cons are the fact that I have really hard classes that a lot of times I need some special guidance with. Um, or even, to see that person face to face to ask questions and get to see students to have help with stuff. So like I have one hard statistics class that usually they'll use the computers for, and so we're having to purchase the programs or use like a remote desktop, which is really hard to access.
Yeah. Oh no, they're a pain in the ass. I couldn't imagine doing virtual school right now. It'd be kind of annoying there. Kind of on that note, like I think it's been pretty well documented that you are, in school and also doing, the fighting thing as well. Did you find that you had maybe some fans reach out to you, maybe going through the same thing where they've got maybe a full-time job and they're balancing school? Did you have anyone reach out? I'm sure you got more fans after that debut, especially just kind of people seeing your rise as a martial artist.
Since I became in MMA to begin with, I've gotten a lot of the same questions evolving around that. Some are parents that ask me, how to juggle parenting with that. And I'm obviously not a parent, but I would say I'm just as busy, if not more busy, than a lot of parents are. I don't want to, offend anyone by saying that because I don't have that personal experience, but I don't get any sleep and I'm working 24/7. Um, but I have people that ask me about that, people who are just students and have jobs. They're not even in martial arts, And then I have some that are trying to be fighters and ask, what it's like to begin the process. And usually I try to reply unless it's a bunch of long questions that I feel like I need paid for to be answering.
No, no,
but
of course. Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean on that. That's
but
hilarious.
I try to give general advice. I prioritize my time really well. I keep a planner all the time, and I just get my stuff done. Procrastinating is your own worst enemy, and it's always going to be there. You got to do it one way or another, and it just causes me personally a lot more stress when I don't get it done right away.
I imagine the weight cut's a little bit easier this time around because you don't have as much of a distance to travel.
I wouldn't even say that's necessarily a downside. I thought it was going to be last time, but I had such a nice weight cut. I had a nutritionist helping me. This time I'm using the same guidelines to cut my weight, and, didn't have a 2-week notice or anything. So I've been pretty fit throughout Christmas and kept my weight pretty low. So this one should be pretty easy as well. Training 5 to 6 hours a day has kept it, you know, where manageable to where it needs to be. And I feel like I don't have much fat right now, so the cut should be pretty manageable.
Who's going to be in your corner for this fight?
My father, finally, he wasn't
Awesome.
able to make it out to
I remember
Abu
that.
Dhabi
Yeah,
last
that's
time.
cool though. You kind of get to have that experience with him in the UFC.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited that he's able to come. And then my main striking coach who made it last time, Jake, and my Brazilian Jiu Jitsu coach and slash MMA coach is not going to be able to make it once again. He's a UFC vet, Mackin Simmerzer. So instead, I have another associated coach going with me for BJJ, and that's James Gamble.
How do you see this fight unfolding on February 13th?
I'm going to anticipate a second round TKO. I plan on going in and just kind of showing every part of my game this time around. I do anticipate that it'll go to the ground or at least in clinch a few times. Aside from that, we'll see who holds the dominant positions in different spots. I'm ready to bring down the house with Gillian.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned knockout because I don't think Jillian's actually been finished in the UFC by knockout. So would that be kind of an extra feather in your cap knowing that you could be the first
Well,
person to do that?
Well, it said TKO, so I'm hoping
TKO,
just
yeah, you know what I mean.
strikes,
TKO, yeah.
whether it be on the ground via submission, that's possible, or just getting on top and beating her up, that'd be great too. And yeah, I know she hasn't been finished much, but I've never been finished, and she plans on going in there and trying to choke me out. That's never happened. I've went with many black belts. I've fought many black belts. I've competed against tons of black belts throughout my jiu-jitsu journey. I've been submitted 3 times in the 6 years I've been doing jiu-jitsu. I just think it's going to be a lot tougher than she anticipates.
For sure. And actually, I will correct myself. She did get knocked out by Macy Barber via TKO in Boston. I was actually at that fight. I don't know why I forgot that, but just wanted to point that out because I know there's going to be some people being like, actually, she did get finished. So where do you feel like a win would put you in the grand scheme of things?
I think it put me to where my next opponent would be in the top 15, top 10, and it kind of depends on how I finish her. I think it'll kind of solidify the hype, I suppose, that's around my name right now. And that's one of the things I've been trying not to let get to my head. I'm not just going to walk into the fight like, oh, I'm going to win. I treat every fight like it's the hardest fight I'll ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into the training room every day with that mindset and try to get better in between each fight. And this one's no different. So no matter how I beat her, I want to be able to live up to that hype, not just take it and run with it.
Yeah, it's something I've noticed, and this is something I'll give you credit for. You're very humble, and I even knew this when we did our first interview when you were in Invicta, and there was, I even remember back then, a lot of hype around you and what you were able to do. Does that come from your dad, kind of just putting things in perspective, where it's like, look, I can't buy into this too much. You're not going out there saying you're going to be the youngest champion or anything like that in the UFC. You're just sort of saying like, look, I'm here. I'll let the work speak for itself. Where does that come from? I'm just curious.
I'd say I give the most credit to faith. Now, mind you, I think my dad's grounded me a lot in that growing up. But I think faith is your own journey with God. And for me, I've had so many scares in my life, so many things that just show me how quick it can all end. You can be this cocky person that thinks you're the best in the world. All it takes is one messed up knee, one, thing like happened to me when I was getting ready for my UFC debut. I got my eyes hurt. Who would have ever anticipated that? It almost ended my career, ended my even my academic career. We thought I was going to be blind afterwards. So that was a very scary experience. And those little things, and even seeing them around you, you don't have to have it happen to yourself if you just pay attention and open your eyes. I try not to be, selfish or I guess conceited within rising in any aspect of my life, because I know it could all be over in the blink of an eye. There's no reason in not taking it for granted.
You strike me as someone who has a lot of gratitude as well. Like just sort of realizing, like you said, life can be taken from you, very quickly. So it's, it seems like you're very aware of that, which is a good way to be. I think gratitude's very underrated in life, don't you think?
I appreciate that. And I do think so. I think a lot of people are very entitled nowadays. I think a lot of people just don't realize how good they have it. Even, get into politics a little bit. Living in the United States is such a blessing. And people don't realize it until you meet those people who are immigrants or that came over and are like, this is amazing. People are working Uber jobs where we're working them part time and like, oh, it's crap money. And other people that come from out of the country are using it to feed a whole family because
Yeah.
they're grateful for it.
Very well said. We could totally have a whole podcast on that, by the way. That would be cool to dig deeper a little bit on that. But my last question, we talked about school and obviously how important it is to you. When it comes to booking your fights, do you have to kind of, wait and see in terms of, what's coming up with school, or like, I'm sure you want to be active, but you also got to make the right choices in terms of what's going on, in your school life as well.
Absolutely. I definitely had to turn down at least one fight during finals last semester. So early December, I had to turn down a fight or two just because it was like right on the days that I have finals, and I can't be flying out to Abu Dhabi for 12 days when I
Right.
have grad school I have to take care of and proctored exams I have to be in person for. So those are considered within my, decision, but I pretty much take any fight that's offered to me, especially if it's short distance traveling like Vegas. I kind of talk to my manager about that. It kind of depends on different dates. I give him times that I am available, times that I'm not available, and then kind of give him when I can travel, when I can't.
Good stuff. Well, we're looking forward to this fight, February 13th, UFC 258. Miranda, always appreciate the time. Always good catching up with you. Just remind people where they can get a hold of you on social media. And if you got any sponsors or shout outs, I'll give you the last word.
All right. At Fear the Maverick on pretty much everything. Please go follow my Twitter. It's low right now. I got hacked right before my fight. So if you already followed me before, just go follow me again. I pretty much deleted and or somebody changed the whole name on the other account. Unfortunately. And now I have new sponsors, but also my same old ones, Top Mount Apparel, Victory Beef. Keep an eye on my Instagram, on my Twitter, on my Facebook for that. My Instagram's also at Fear the Maverick, except _HOMT. You can look up my name though, pretty much find me on anything. It's a pretty unique name.